for 4 years. He was fun, but I don't want a fun guy. I need somebody who can articulate actual things when they get up
Right.
on the pulpit and the stage.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
you are preaching to me. You are selling me on your point of view and your belief system.
Right. You want somebody who you can get behind and be confident that you can be behind them. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the reality. I think, what you would rather you can support, right? So what's interesting is that I heard a guy give an analogy about Trump the other day. I was watching some video, and he was like, they asked him, "Do you like Trump?" Because he's a Trump voter, right? And so he asked him, "Do you like Trump?" And he kind of paused. He was like, "Do I like Trump?" And he goes, no, I don't really like him at all. Actually, he's like, I don't like him at all. I probably would never sit down and have tea or coffee or that kind of stuff with him or whatnot. He says, but when I look at the world, I see Korea got a crazy mad junkyard dog leading it. He says, I look at Russia, they've got Putin, a junkyard dog leading it. He said he looks all around these nations that are all being led by these wild dog junkyard dogs. He was like, to be honest with you, I just feel like I need to get a junkyard dog to fight for me too. And I thought that was so interesting to hear that perspective. I mean, whether you support or you disagree or you agree or whatever the case is, I just thought it was an interesting perspective that that's where we are. Like we're at a place where we're looking at our leadership, and it really nowadays has nothing to do with policy. It has nothing to do with position. It has nothing to do with your personality or any of those things now. Or better yet, it has everything to do with personality. You know what I mean? It has everything to do with position. You know what I mean? Because you look at, for example, like, going back to like Obama, you look at Obama, I know a lot of people who simply voted for Obama because he was black.
Yeah.
That was the only reason they voted for him, despite what his policies was. I know people who voted for him because he was charismatic. He was cool. He,
I remember his
he
inauguration
yeah,
speech. Yeah,
yeah,
his
man.
inauguration
He
speech
was like,
was
he
all
made you be
was
like, yes, change. We can change.
yes
Like
we can.
yes, we can.
Yeah.
And so I get it. I mean, but you got to think about it. If you and I both know, studying global movements and historical government and political uh, movements, which I'm just saying movements. Many of them, especially in the 1940s, you remember what rose up then, the fascist movement rose then, and the big thing about them was they were all about that, charisma. It was all that like smiles, and I mean, you figure people don't even realize Hitler was one of the most popular politicians in the world, prior to the Holocaust. You know what I mean? People don't even know that. And don't get me wrong, if anybody's listening, I'm not comparing Obama to Hitler. I'm just saying that the mindset of the people are moved by movement emotion, like emotional movement. I was reading about fascism earlier, and because that word's thrown around so much. I was reading about fascism in the Encyclopedia Britannica, about just like the history of fascism, and the characteristics of fascism and so on and so forth. What's interesting is, that there's no actual clear defined definition of fascism, that it's been presented. What's interesting is that they have a definition, but it's been presented from the conservative and the liberal side. So you've had liberal fascists and you've had conservative fascists. They've had policies, like you could say fascism is conservative in nature, but it's not always been conservative in implementation or in organization, because many of the later fascist movements that rose up, at the end of the 30s and 40s were actually quelled by the conservatives that were running the nations. And so people don't know that. People don't know that, fascism was its own entity, because you had democratic conservatives who were not on the fascist train. And then you had the liberals that were not on like the fascists were their own entity. And I think that people have to understand that, because there was a separation there. But
People also have a very skewed view of history. When
right,
I remember when Trump was in office and they were talking about how he had copies of Adolf Hitler's speeches. Well, if you're a political person and you give speeches and you don't have copies of Adolf Hitler's speeches, you're an idiot. He was the most
right,
charismatic leader in history to date. He moved an entire country to not only commit genocide, but almost beat the entire world on the battlefield. You know what I'm saying?
right,
So if you don't, it doesn't matter if he's good or bad. you need to have that in your collection, okay? So but to be like, oh, because he has a copy of his speeches, you know, he's Hitler. He follows Hitler. I mean, you can take good and bad things from all throughout history. You know what I'm saying? So to sit there and
Right.
make that leap, and people don't realize how fast Hitler played on the emotions, dude. Not you know, not the Third Reich, but Germany after World War I was broke. They had
Yeah.
nothing. They
Yeah.
they were already in a depression way before the rest of the world. Their morale was
Right.
low, and they're very, you know, they're very patriotic, very nationalist people. And so when Hitler rose up, he's like, "Hey, I got the fucking solution, bro." And they're like, "What's your solution, man?" And then he just starts talking in beer. I mean, it's a long book. It's like 1,100 pages. Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. I recommend reading it, especially like the first 400 pages is all about from his, you know, from the end of World War One all the way up through 1933 when he seized power. It's really interesting to see like all the times he failed and still came back. Because it's not like he just like started talking and like everything caught. Like he failed a bunch of fucking times, you know,
Right.
and stuff like that. You can actually take a lesson from that. That like even bad people, you know, sit in the mirror and jock themselves up to get back out there and try to do evil again. You know what I'm saying? So if our candidates can't get up on the stage and move us, like I can't even remember the last time an American candidate gave a great speech besides Dr. Joe Jorgensen, Mama Joe. He gave a good speech that I was like, damn, I really want to vote for that person. Because like I voted for Donald Trump back in 2016 because, well, Hillary Clinton she's not it. And I didn't vote for the Libertarian candidate, Gary Johnson, because he was too libertarian. The dude was high every time he gave an interview. Like, I can't have my president token up before he goes and talks about a nuclear arms deal. You know, so I voted for Trump. I didn't even think Trump would win. I was just as surprised as everybody else when he won.
Hey, Alex. Hey, your connection is kind of going bad a little bit again. It was kind of garbled or whatnot. We could hear you, but it was kind of like a little bit. So it might be that Iraqi internet hitting hard today.
Yeah. Anyway, basically what I'm saying is like, you know, these candidates need to come out and they need to speak clearly. They need to talk to their constituents. And I don't want you to plead to the masses. Just tell me what you believe in, and then people will flock to you naturally. Because if we have more of a movement of rational people, you know, people that are willing to meet in the middle, not a polarized Republican and a polarized Democrat, a liberal and a conservative. You have two people that are willing to think through the country's problems and actually bring in liberal point of views and conservative point of views. You know, we're going to do a lot better as a nation. We just need to kind of get
Alex,
foolishness.
I hate to cut you off, bro, but I think the feds, they don't want you to say they do not want you to say what you're saying, because it's like it got real rough. Because I don't want anybody to miss. I don't want anybody to miss what you're saying. So
let me try to take it off these headphones. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, because it's like your video, everything's kind of got all kind of crazy, like they're interfering with our broadcast here.
Can you hear me now? I'm like, what were you thinking? What were you thinking? Enid.
Yeah, it's just that maybe they was interfering with our broadcast because of what we're saying.
So.
It's like you went in the dial-up for a minute. Like I can't even hardly see you for a minute. Like they don't want you to hear this, folks.
They don't want this white guy and this black guy coming together and uniting the country.
Right. How dare they have a black and a white guy talking politics and stuff?
We're declaring for the election. Me and Reese the Poet, we're going to run this up. We're not going to do vice president, president. We're just going to do co-presidents.
Yeah. We're going to be two presidents, yeah. Double presidency. You know what I'm saying? Real talking points. Zero Foxtrot, Reese the Poet for president 2024. How about that? All right, there we go. I think we got you back.
Am I back? Can you hear me?
A little bit, yeah. I think it's trying to get it together.
It's just placement.
But, yeah. No, it's all good. But yeah, I mean, but ultimately, like I said, I got the gist. I got most of what you were saying. You know, and the reality is that, you know, we have So there's a couple of things you would say. One of the things in particular was in the very beginning, you were saying like, yeah, if you want to be any kind of leader of any sort, you definitely want to be able to look and read and focus on some of these leaders of the past, whether they've been good or they've been bad. The reality is that they were successful, and you need to understand why were they successful in their own right? What were they doing? What things can you glean from them, whether they were negative or positive? I mean, even in any kind of situation, whether it be a job or the military or anything, you're going to have good and bad leaders, but you can pull pros and cons from both. But you have to be able to remain objective in your ideology. You know what I mean? Like, it's like I always ask this question. Here you go. I always ask this question. If it's true, does it matter who says it? And I can ask, and that's for the people, and that's for the people listening and everything. If it's true, does it matter who says it? If it's a reality, if it's something that is objectively real, does it matter does it matter who says it? If Adolf Hitler were to say something that's absolutely true, do you reject it because he's Hitler? You know what I mean? Do you, if say you're a Trump fan, here you go, say you're a Trump fan, and he says something that's not true, do you just accept it simply because he's Trump? Say you're a Joe Biden fan, do you just accept something as being completely true just because it's who it is? To me, for you listening and everybody listening, if it matters who says it, then you don't really care about the issue itself. You're more interested in the identity of who said it. You're more interested in the identity politics and the optics that go along with it. You see what I'm saying? Because I think in my mind, if we want to remain objective about it, like, what's true is true, whether you're a Republican or whether you're a Democrat. Is it true or is it not true? Like, that's what it boils down to. If this person is a Democrat and you're a hard conservative Republican, but they tell you something that's true, you got to be willing to say, you know what, I'm not going to just reject that information just because you're a Democrat. You know what I'm saying? And vice versa for the Liberal Party. Like, if you're a woke, progressive, social justice warrior, all that stuff, you can't just reject everything that the conservative says simply because they're a conservative. Like, that's the reality, and that's where we get messed up. Because then your party and your allegiances become your idols, and they'll become your blinders that block you from seeing a potential future. Yeah. And that's just a thought.
No, we treat politicians like we treat celebrities, like our favorite sports stars, and they develop a following, and they become this larger than life being, and then whatever they say, they're never wrong, and people will literally fight each other over false information. They'll fight each other over false information.
Man.
That's absolutely, I think one of the things that we see in this election is we need to see more truth. If you're going to talk numbers, let's talk real numbers, all numbers, full numbers. Whether it's about crime, race, statistics, poverty, how many people are on welfare. I don't think it necessarily matters unless you give all the facts to everything that you're talking about. And we'll go back to what we said in the very beginning. These candidates need to tell us not only what they want to do to fix these problems, but how do you actually feel about this issue that you're talking about? You're spouting a lot of facts. You're spouting a lot of other people's words. But what are your words? What are your thoughts and your feelings?
Yeah. No, I agree with you, bro. I'm trying to find this thing that I wrote down the other day, and it was about just what we were just talking about. Where is it? Because I was doing, when you said that, I was doing some thinking about modern day activism, and it goes right along with what we were just talking about. I'm trying to find it in my notes real quick. Where is it? All right, so many notes, man. I'm trying to I got all my thousands of notes. Because, you know, I don't know if I told you, I'm like little by little working on a book. And so I've been like writing these thoughts down, you know, and then putting all kind of stuff together and put my notes together. And, dang, shoot. Not remember. I thought it was in this particular chapter, but anyway, I can't find it. But I'll have to, when I find it, I'll post it.
All right.
Yeah, when I find it, I'll post. It's no big deal. We got to get back to it. But yeah, man, I think at the end of the day, when whoever's listening, I think the biggest thing is when you're looking at these candidates and you're looking at all this stuff, let's erase in your mind this. Well, I take it back. I was gonna say erase the idea of parties, which I wish we could. I wish we could get away from having these parties and this current system that we have in the first place. But I don't want to say that because so okay. All right. Here's the question. I got so many things going in my head right now. Here's the question. So like I look at like if you are a Democrat, right? My question, because I have found this interesting concept. It's kind of an ironic thing. I have found that many of the Democrats that I talk to have conservative values, but they have allegiance to the Democratic Party.
Okay.
Which I find is it's such an interesting concept because most of the people who I know that are Democrats, in many aspects, particularly in the racial stuff, you know, when it comes to race and things like that, most of them actually have conservative values in every other aspect, you know, but race is the one thing that is there that keeps them keep them allied to the Democratic Party. And then when it comes to the Republicans, most of the well, not most of, but many of the Republicans and conservatives that I've talked to, many of them don't necessarily adhere to all of the conservative ideology, but they just know that what they see on the left is not what they want. And so they align themselves. And so regardless of what is being said or what's actually happening, their leaning allegiance is for this conservative side simply because I just don't want that. You know what I mean? It's almost a vice versa. It's almost the flip of how many people voted for Biden because they just didn't want Trump. Well, now it's like it's flipped to where you have people who are choosing conservative and Republicans simply because they just don't want left. You know, I just don't want woke. I just don't want left. And so I'm going to just come over here, and although I'm not totally comfortable with it, I'm going to just be over here because this seems to make a little bit more sense in some aspects. And then on the flip side, you have so many liberals, Democrats, who are allegiant to the Democratic Party, but most of their values are conservative. But they don't want to be, you know, a bigot, or they don't want to be, you know what I'm saying? They don't want to break their loyalties, you know what I'm saying? I think that's an interesting concept, that you have people who really don't want to be on either one side, but they choose the other side in opposition to the other side. It's just an interesting mindset that we have. Go ahead, what are you gonna say?
I've met a lot of people like that where they're very, very, you know, they're very loyal to their political party, but you're right, they have values that pretty much go along with the other party, which is why I think it's super important to have more than just two parties. You know, where is those parties in the middle that bridge the gap? You know, that's libertarianism. Libertarianism might be a little too much for other people to understand, especially if you've been stuck in the system for a long time. But you know, independence and stuff like that, just people coming together and being like, okay, what is the best way to go about this? You know, what is the best way to go about taxes? What is the best way to go about, you know, racial division in the country? What is the best way to go about reforming the way we police? You know, everybody wants to do knee-jerk reactions. Everybody wants to go high and right all the time on any decision that they make. And it's, you know, and every time they do that, it always turns out badly. Like, look at all the cities that wanted to defund the police that have descended into crime. And now they're like, now we need police, and people are like, we don't want to be police.
I missed that last portion when you got to defund the police. Like I said, the internet. Isn't it crazy though? I'm gonna say something, bro. Isn't it crazy how we have never really had any like major internet issues? And I'm like I said, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but isn't it crazy? We've never had any major internet issues in any of our broadcasts. If anything, you know, we have one, you get off and come back, and you're good.
Okay, I
right, if anything happens to me. All right.
I missed it. I couldn't even hear you. That's what I'm saying. That's so weird, bro.
I didn't kill myself, okay? I didn't kill myself. If you hear a knock on the door, I disappear.
I'm telling you, hey, I'm telling the one conversation we decide to really have seriously about the presidential election, the government, and all that kind of stuff, like real, honest conversation about this. All of a sudden, we're having all these technical issues and this internet going out, and see what I'm saying? Like, you know, this is the kind of stuff that makes people be like, what's really going on up in this mug? That's anyway. That is it weird? It is quite, because we've had conversations. Yeah, I know it. I know it. We have had conversations of a lot of different things, and it's not until we actually talk about this. We've never had this much internet interference and problems. So I'm just throwing that out there, man. Like I said, I'm not trying to be one of them people, but I just think it's interesting. Yeah. And for all of our listeners, y'all know too. Let's be honest. You all have listened to our broadcast. You have been on our lives. And we've had little issues, but we've never had this many issues. So anyway. But that's a whole nother thing for another day. Yeah. So I think on that note, just because we are taking a choice, we are making the decision to do better at keeping it within an hour. Just so the people know, it ain't because no one is going to stop us. We will not be silenced. Don't get it twisted. But for the sake of time and for the sake of, you know, getting ourselves situated and doing a better job of kind of curtailing our conversations, we're going to go ahead. We'll call it. It is exactly 55 minutes into our conversation. So we thank y'all. Appreciate y'all being a part of this. This is clearly, we just scratched the surface once again. We'll have to come back and we can really hear each other and get good, clear connections. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully I don't get knocks on my door. You know what I mean? But we'll see. But like I say, we thank y'all. We appreciate you guys. And we'll catch y'all next time. If you have topics you want us to cover, please send us a DM, put a comment on the chat, whatever the case is, or put a comment on the actual post. Follow us on YouTube at The Real Talking Points. On YouTube at The Real Talking Points. All the things are posted there. If you want to go back and listen or you missed something, please go back, check it out. Like, share, subscribe, pass on, all the above. Anything you want to try to say, if they let you? Oh, hey.
Yeah. Go check out the channels, guys, and let us know if there's anything you guys want to talk about. If you want to come on the show, we're always looking for people to come on the show. That'd be great. But until next time, try again next week. We'll see if the government's still watching this then.
I'm telling you. All right, y'all.